This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. Election Day is quickly approaching, and homeless shelters are working to help people cast a ballot. Voters who are unhoused face barriers when it comes to having their say. As Josh Crabb reports, some people are eager to head to the polls.
He doesn't have a permanent address. Edward Parisian says that won't stop him from voting.
I always watch about it on the news about who's running, prepare and all that, and I noticed that they gave us a form and they told us it's voting time.
Parisian is staying at the Salvation Army's Centre of Hope, one of several homeless shelters in Winnipeg's inner city. Elections Canada wants to make sure people like Parisian can have their say on issues that directly affect them: the cost of living, homelessness, and a lack of affordable housing.
We go try to rent the place. It's hard to get a place because I don't know, there's not enough here.
Not having a place to live is one barrier to voting. So is a lack of identification, transportation, and access to campaign promises. Margot Ross with Siloam Mission says that shouldn't stop people from taking part.
We'll have drop-in staff who hold the strongest relationships with our community members, encouraging folks to go out and vote.
Elections Canada workers have been visiting shelters like Siloam Mission to give letters to staff so they can vouch for the people who use their services to prove their identity. Cindy Titus with Main Street Project says outreach workers helped 17 people vote in advance polls, and she says they're working to get more people out on Election Day.
The folks that we serve have a lot of other things going on, and that they made voting a priority in their days. That's a pretty big deal.
They're also providing information on the candidates and their platforms. Parisian compliments the effort to get more people to vote, but would like to see more outreach.
Maybe more people should come out here and walk around and tell us.
Parisian has voted before and hopes more people take advantage of the opportunity. Josh Crabb, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Meantime, in the riding of Kildonan-St. Paul, there's a U-shaped slice of the Riverbend neighbourhood where no collective allegiance to any of Canada's three most popular political parties exists. CBC's Partly Kivas spoke to voters in the area.
On the south side of Winnipeg's Riverbend neighbourhood, every voter has a different opinion about who should get their vote in Kildonan-St. Paul. Darcy Fair is going Liberal, mainly because of the threat posed by Donald Trump.
Well, I'm more NDP usually, but I think now we're just in a situation where we have to go more center and hopefully we survive all this.
Kathy Kraychuk is also concerned about Trump, but she's voting NDP.
I've never voted for the other two parties. However, there is one party in particular that I think if they do get in, we're in very serious trouble.
Kraychuk says that other party is the Conservatives, who have Karen McCarra's vote.
Conservative, they're a little bit more tight when it comes to money, but it's a good thing because they actually always take Canada out of debt. That's what I noticed.
This neighborhood in Riverbend is part of the most undecided poll in Kildonan-St. Paul. Over the past three federal elections, voters here have shown no preference for any of the three major federal parties. In 2015, when the Liberals won the riding, the Liberal and Conservative vote in this neighborhood was tied. In 2019, the Conservatives edged out the Liberals here by 19 votes. And in 2021, the Conservative and NDP vote was tied. Conservative candidate Raquel Danshaw has won 2 straight elections in Kildonan-St. Paul. She hopes to make it a third on the basis voters are tired of the 9-year Liberal government.
An overwhelming desire for change is what I'm hearing at the door, particularly from young families that are working harder than ever and struggling to get ahead.
While Kildonan-St. Paul usually selects Conservative candidates, the Liberals did win it in 2015. Now, while the party is polling higher than it did that year, the candidate is a political novice, especially compared to Danshaw.
And she does have the name of the incumbent, but what does that mean for the people of our riding, right? Is she actually able to do something for them? Is Raquel representing them at the table? 2 other candidates are running in Kildonan-St. Paul. Emily Clark for the NDP and Eric Holmes for the People's Party. Partly Kivas, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Manitoba voters flocked to advance polls over the Easter long weekend. According to Elections Canada, about 20% more people came out to vote on the 4 days compared to the previous election. From Friday through Monday, close to 230,000 Manitobans cast their ballots compared to about 188,000 in 2021. Overall, 7.3 million Canadians voted in the advance polls this year, a 25% increase over the 2021 election. Election Day is April 28th. 2 teenage boys have been arrested after a report of shots fired in a busy shopping mall. Police were at CF Polo Park around 3 yesterday after being called about several young men showing off and firing a handgun. Mall security followed the suspects and kept in touch with police. 2 suspects were arrested in the food court and an airsoft pistol was seized. A 15-year-old boy has been charged with possessing a weapon and causing a disturbance. The second suspect was released without charges. RCMP say intruders broke into cottages at a fly-in lodge in northern Manitoba and camped out this winter while hunting caribou. It happened at a privately owned lodge near Newton Lake, roughly 30 kilometers south of the Nunavut border. RCMP were notified early in the morning of April 14th that a number of cottages at the fly-in lodge had been broken into with considerable damage. Mounties say the intruders appear to have camped out on the property during the winter months and hunted caribou. Manitoba Conservation is also part of the ongoing investigation. A Winnipeg man convicted of killing his baby boy was in court today for sentencing. Matthew Moreau was found guilty of manslaughter after a trial last year. CBC's Caitlin Gowerluck was in court.
The mother of baby Maven Gillis Moreau spoke through tears in court on Wednesday at the sentencing hearing for the infant's father in their son's death. She detailed how his death changed her life forever. 3-month-old Maven was found unresponsive in January 2020 while being watched by his father. Last year, Matthew Moreau was convicted of manslaughter after a judge found he shook, hit, or threw his son that night. Prosecutors want Moreau sent to prison for 10 to 12 years, saying he still hasn't gotten counseling for anger management issues, shows a lack of insight into his crime, and was in a position of trust over an extremely vulnerable child. The defense says he should only get 3 to 5 years, noting that Moreau called 911 and tried to resuscitate his injured son. Court heard Moreau was assessed as being a medium risk to reoffend. In a victim impact statement, Maven's mother said she struggled with severe mental health issues after her son's death. She said Matthew Moreau took away everything Maven could have been and his bright future ahead. Instead of walking Maven through life, she said, I had to walk him to the morgue. Moreau's lawyers told him not to speak when given the chance in court on Wednesday, but said he feels terrible about his son's death. The judge is expected to give her decision on Moreau's sentencing next month. Caitlin Gowerluck, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Well, as Manitobans get ready to hit the road for summer adventures, Manitoba Public Insurance and police are reminding drivers to slow down and stay safe behind the wheel. Mounties say 68 people have died on Manitoba roadways in the last 3 years, and thousands of others were involved in crashes because of speed. They say speeding is one of the most dangerous, high-risk driving behaviors.
It is terribly sad and completely unnecessary because speeding is absolutely 100% preventable. And yet over 23,000 speeding enforcement tickets were issued in 2024, including a ticket to a driver caught going 225 kilometers per hour.
MPI says a pedestrian hit by a car going 30 kilometers an hour has just a 5% risk of dying. That risk jumps to 80% if the driver is going 65 kilometers an hour. And there are long lines leading into St. Peter's Basilica, where Pope Francis is now lying in state. This as thousands of mourners arrive to pay their final respects to the pontiff. The open coffin was carried from his nearby residence to the cathedral, where it will stay until Friday. The Vatican says it may extend the time for pilgrims to visit until beyond midnight in Rome due to a large number of visitors. His funeral is set for Saturday. Riley Laychuk in now. And Riley, we were saying yesterday that maybe it wasn't enough rain for some people, and then last night we got a little bit more.
Yeah, a little bit of rain. We'll talk about how much we got coming up just a little bit later in the show. Still a little bit out of that system, still falling, particularly into northwestern Ontario. Behind that, high pressure has done a pretty good job clearing us out through the afternoon. I know we did see a couple of bobs of sunshine back under some cloud cover, and radar even indicating a couple of stray showers in some of this cloud cover. So still a little bit of cloud cover as we get through the night tonight, but we really start to get some clearing as we get through the day on Thursday. So inside the city, +1, maybe we get down to 0, -1 outside the city. West winds at 10 overnight tonight. A mix of sun and clouds into the morning, +2 first thing in the morning, and we'll get into some double-digit temperatures, 14 degrees by the afternoon, and spoiler alert, the entire 7-day forecast right now, I've got double-digit temperatures. We'll go into detail when I come back.
All right. Thank you, Riley.
Welcome.
Travel, tourism, and the trade war. With a decline in U.S. visitors to our country, why Manitoba seems to be going against the trend. More on that straight ahead. Recent statistics show Canada is seeing a dip in visitors from the U.S. amid the trade war. But here in Manitoba, the numbers paint a different picture. CBC's Cameron McLean has more.
Amid the ongoing trade war, many Canadians have opted to cancel or avoid trips to the U.S. And it appears some Americans may be doing the same to Canada. Visits to Canada from the U.S. in February declined by nearly 11%. But Natalie Thiessen of Economic Development Winnipeg says new data shows Manitoba may be bucking that trend. The number of land border crossings from the U.S. increased by 9% in the first quarter of this year.
Though nationally we're seeing a decline, I would say a stable decline in U.S. visitation, in Manitoba we're not seeing the same impact based on most recent Statistics Canada data by land crossing and also by air.
Arrivals by air in Manitoba increased even more during the same period, by about 60%. That may be due partly to increased capacity from new flights coming online within the last year. Thiessen says the agency has heard concerns from some Americans worried they won't be welcome if they come here. Economic Development Winnipeg commissioned a poll by Probe Research that found 86% of respondents think Manitoba should still warmly welcome Americans.
So that's telling that our friendly Manitoba nature and Winnipeggers' willingness to welcome Americans to our jurisdiction. And they're an important piece of business to our visitor economy.
The head of the Manitoba Hotel Association says there are a number of big events planned this year, expected to draw large numbers of tourists.
So pretty optimistic for the year ahead. And yeah, we really haven't heard much or anything of large changes in U.S. demand in Winnipeg or Manitoba so far.
With increases also expected from Canadian tourists exploring their own backyard, people in Winnipeg's tourism industry say the outlook for this year looks bright, despite the dark clouds south of the border. Cameron McLean, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The family of a woman who died while waiting for cardiac surgery say while they're happy with the moves made by the province, more needs to be done. Debbie Fuster needed a triple bypass but died last fall after waiting months for surgery. The province is looking at changes to communicate surgical wait times for patients in the cardiac unit. Debbie's son wants it to become a law with formal consequences if not met.
Manitoba has an opportunity to lead the way. By fully implementing and legislating Debbie's law, we can set a model for other provinces to follow. This is about creating a healthcare system that works for and prioritizes patients, that listens to their needs, and that ensures no one falls through the cracks.
He says he'd like to see fines for health regions, not individual doctors. He says since telling his mother's story, he's heard from people from across the country with similar stories. Riley's back in now, and Riley, it is certainly starting to feel like spring for this West Coaster, the rain, but also those double-digit temperatures that we're seeing in that long-term forecast of yours.
We are in for quite the stretch of some gorgeous weather. I mean, there are some people in Manitoba who won't complain if we get a little bit more rain.
That's true.
Yeah, I mean, there is some precipitation in the forecast, but yes, we are entering a pretty stable stretch of weather here for the next several days. Let's start with the rain that we saw over the last 24 hours or so here, and pretty much as expected, Winnipeg, around the city, Coco spotters saying around 5 millimeters, give or take. So on par forecast-wise, just south of the city, though, southwest Sanford getting about 12 millimeters. You'll recall I was showing you on radar yesterday some of those heavier pockets in the southwestern corner of the city and just southwest of the city. So yes, that's where we did see some of that 10 to 12 millimeter range. Steinbach 10 millimeters, 10 to 15 in Brandon, and the Turtle Mountains just outside of Boissevain, 6 centimeters of snow, up to 25 millimeters of rain. So kind of a variety depending on where you were in the province. All right, that area of low pressure pushes off into northwestern Ontario as we get through the night. Starting on Thursday morning, mainly sunny skies, a bit of cloud hanging around here and there, but by and large, high pressure to our west, clearing us out as we get through the overnight hours, and that is setting us up for what is likely to be actually pretty stable couple of days and an extended stretch of pretty stable weather across the province. I mean, this particular forecast model, out of some of this cloud cover indicating the potential for some scattered showers, I wouldn't read too much into that in the way of any accumulating rainfall, but the potential is there that when you see some of this cloud cover, maybe you get a couple of sprinkles out of that. Starting Friday, once again, we'll rinse and repeat. We'll do another sunny day into northern Manitoba, though, particularly along the Hudson Bay coast to Dooley Lake, Churchill. The potential as we get overnight Friday into Saturday that we could pick up a few more centimeters of snow, really on the line between snow and rain as we get into the weekend, as we see a push here of some southerly air into the province. That's going to really surge our temperatures as we get into the weekend here. You can see that ridge starting to build as we get Friday in the west and really pushes into Manitoba as we get later into the day on Saturday. Starting to degrade a bit into Sunday, Monday. This is when we could see our next weather maker in the form of some rain as we get through into the early part of the next week. Overnight temperatures in the Red River Valley hanging around the freezing mark. I think 1 degree inside the city, but could fall -1s to 0s outside. -3 in Brandon, Thompson at -3 overnight, up to 11 degrees by the afternoon tomorrow. I've got Winnipeg at 14 tomorrow afternoon, Brandon at 15. I'll have your 7-day forecast in just a bit. Well, today is World Table Tennis Day. It has been celebrated every year since 2015.
The International Table Tennis Federation Foundation shortlisted Manitoba as one of the places to be for part of the celebration. So on Wednesday night, the Forks will host exhibition matches between some of Manitoba's most decorated international athletes. Of course, we sent CBC's Jim Agapito to catch up with 2 of them ahead of the tournament.
It's World Table Tennis Day today, and the Manitoba Table Tennis Association is serving up something special this evening at the Forks to mark the occasion.
My name is Terry Zan. I've been playing table tennis for 26 years, and I'm 31 years old. I'm very happy. We have never done this in Manitoba. This is the first time this event is come to Manitoba. Year by yearly in Manitoba, the table tennis is growing fast and fast. Now I can see a lot of different nations, they start to take table tennis very seriously.
My name is Matthew Lehman. I'm 27 years old, and I've been playing table tennis for almost 20 years now.
People refer to it as table tennis, people refer to it as ping pong. What's the correct term and what's the difference?
So I'm okay with either ping pong or table tennis, but usually we keep table tennis for the Olympic sport, and then ping pong is what you play in the basement with your friends. So I started when I was around 7 or 8 years old and just loved it. Within a couple years, I was playing for the Manitoba provincial team. And then after I graduated high school, I wanted to see if I could make the Canadian national team. So I actually moved to Europe for 2 years and played semi-professionally there. And I ended up making the World Championship team for Canada. So I participated in Sweden in the World Championships for table tennis, which is really cool. It all started with liking ping pong.
What is that level like when you're competing at that level?
It's what you see on YouTube or if you see the Olympics when they come on. It's fast-paced, it's intense. You have to train your footwork, you have to train all the different strokes, so you do different drills on the table and also fitness off the table. Visualizing is important, the mental game is really important. A lot of it is muscle memory, you're just used to, you can see by the way the opponent's racket angle is, even before they touch the ball, you have an idea of where it might go, so you can cheat a little bit, so that's really important.
So why should people get involved in the sport?
I think the sport's for everyone. Whether it's ping pong or table tennis, it is still the same sport, and so you can play it for fun in the basement or at work with your coworkers, or you can take it to the Olympic level. You can use it for fitness. It's a good way to meet new people. It's just a great sport for all people.
Still ahead, it's a race to the finish. We'll try to catch up with some very good boys and girls. Stay with us.
got nothing left to lose. You got to roll with the punches. That's what you got to do. Roll with the punches. That's what I said to you.
Rock singer Bryan Adams is coming to Winnipeg this fall. His Roll with the Punches tour will make 19 Canadian stops. Adams is set to play the Canada Life Centre on Monday, September 29th, along with the Sheepdogs. General ticket sales begin next week.
All right, I thought I'd give you a bit of a weather picture tonight. This is from Brandon. Thank you to Judy for sending this picture in of an albino robin that she caught on her lawn this morning. You can always send your pictures to talkback@cbc.ca. Okay, here's your dog walking forecast. Shadow eager for a ride out on the field in the Razor. Thanks to Annette for sending this picture in. Shadow, you're in for a good afternoon tomorrow at 14 degrees. Mix of sun and clouds through tomorrow, seeing that cloud cover kind of ebbing in and out, but certainly some periods where we'll look at some mainly sunny skies tomorrow. Your 7-day looks like this: 16 degrees on the way for Friday. Let's try for 18 on Saturday under a mix of sun and clouds. Our next chance for some showers comes as we get into the day on Monday, maybe a thunderstorm, but staying in the double digits into mid next week. Well, we now take you to a bit of a pandemonium moment in Scotland, but more like chaotic in a good way. Corgis racing to the finish.
Who doesn't love a corgi?
Yes.
And you can bet the very good winner was showered with treats. Here's your daily lift. Now this is the moment Corgi dogs raced head-to-head in an annual Corgi Derby in Scotland. This year's event saw 4-year-old Corgi Juno race to victory. The winners were congratulated by Scottish tennis coach Judy Murray, who presented them with a trophy and, of course, treats.
I'm sure she just wants more treats, but yeah, it feels good. She came 9th out of 12 last year, so a little bit of an improvement there. And yeah, I'm sure we'll be showering her with treats later.
It's always a carnage because they're so noisy at the start because they're so excited, and you've got one owner with them at the start, you've got the other owner at the finish line with the treats or whatever it is, and some of them will run straight, some of them will not start at all, and some of them will go off at tangents and bump into each other or bite each other.
So the race was launched in 2022 to mark Queen Elizabeth II's Platinum Jubilee and was created to celebrate the breed, which of course the late monarch's favorite, and she had her own.
Love it.
I love it.
Well, that's
Very
all
cute.
for us. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Have a great night.
Have a wonderful evening.
I love that. And all the treats.